Hello, Taiwanese. I'm Rich Appleman, Chairman of the Bass Department at the Berklee College of Music, and I'm here to answer some questions that Jarek has given to me. I think this is a very good idea that he has for me and some other people to sort of explain things about Berklee College of Music. So the first question that I have here is, in terms of musicianship, what kind of students is Berklee College of Music looking for? That's a great question, and it's not that easy to answer. The short answer is we're looking for students who are going to be successful here. Now that's not that easy to say because every student is a little different. But what we are looking for is students who have musical skills and a musical desire that when we hear them and talk to them, we feel that they will, as I said before, be successful here. It's not a good idea to accept a student that is not going to be successful here because, one, the student is going to have a bad experience and also then probably leave Berklee, and then we have to sort of go out and maybe find another student. So it's very important for us to find the students that have the skills that we think will help them be successful. Now, in some schools, it's a little more, it's easily defined. For instance, you may have to play a concerto, or you may have to memorize certain tunes, or you may have to have certain ear training skills. At Berklee, we accept a very broad and wide range of students, so you don't have to have all the skills that maybe some schools require. However, there is something that we're looking for in the audition that we feel students either have certain ears for music, they can play their instrument a certain way, their desire about the music business, maybe in the business area or in the recording area or in the composition area. So there's a lot of different ways and things that we're looking for. The big difference, at the beginning, Berklee was known as a jazz school, and it was one of the few schools that in the 1940s and 50s, if musicians that were getting out of the military in the United States, we had a thing called the GI Bill where the government would help you go to school. And so if you wanted to be a classical or a symphony musician, you could go to a conservatory, but there were no schools that taught jazz. So Lawrence Burke, the founder of Berklee, founded Berklee with the idea that it would teach sort of big band composition and jazz. And that was the beginning of Berklee. And what that led to is later in the 60s and 70s, it led to developing a curriculum in blues and rock and roll. And so Berklee is known as a school that teaches contemporary music. And once again, that's hard to explain because it's so big. But what we have here is we still have our core of jazz teachers, and we do have a jazz curriculum here, but we have a lot of rock players, a lot of blues players, Latin music, the newgrass, lots of fiddle players. Our orchestra is getting stronger in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think we have a little bit of everything. What can you learn at Berklee? You can learn to be a musician. You can learn a lot about life in music. One of the great things about music is we do have students from all over the world. About 1/3 of the students here are from other countries. So what you get here is sort of a picture of what the music business is in all over the world. And because Berklee is very big and large, over 4,000 students, I think it is sort of like a miniature of the music business. There's competition here. Certain bands and certain teachers in certain classes, students are looking to get in those. So there is some competition, like in the music business. However, I think it's a healthy competition, and in my opinion, at least in the bass department, I think we pretty much get along and we're friends, and we appreciate each other as artists and musicians. It's not just a jazz school, and that is a little bit complicated in that some people that are really serious about jazz, young people, will say, "Oh, I hear that there's a lot of, there's 1,000 guitar players at Berkeley, and I hear that you have, the new grass, and you have music business, and you have film scoring, so Berkeley isn't a jazz school anymore." No, that's not true. We're still a jazz school. We still have, when I went here from 1968 to 72, there was a very strong jazz presence both in the faculty and in the curriculum and in the students. That's still here. It's just that the school has gotten bigger around that. So we still have that core of jazz, but now we do have blues, rock and roll, funk, Latin, and so it's not just a jazz school. I'm a classical musician, rock player, self-taught musician. If I can't play jazz and I have no idea about improvisation, how should I prepare for the audition? Can I still study at Berkeley? Yes, you can study at Berkeley. What you need to do to prepare for the audition is to find what you think is your strength. When you audition, there will be usually 2 people on the audition team. What they're looking for is for you to present to them what your strengths in music, your strong points. That's the prepared piece is very important, and you should not play a jazz piece unless you play jazz, or unless you feel you sound good playing jazz. So you need to figure out a way, whether you make a play along, whether you maybe bring a friend with you, but you need to find out a way to convey to the audition team in your prepared piece what your strengths are as far as performance. They will then ask you some questions. They'll ask you about ear training. They may place some things for you to see if you can hear them or play back, maybe some rhythms. They will ask you, they'll also give you some written music to look at before the audition, and you'll have usually 15 or 20 minutes to look at that. It starts out very simple, and it gets more difficult. If you can't read music and you're really, really strong in your ears and your prepared piece, you probably may get accepted, but when you get here, you're going to have to learn to read music. So even if we don't require it for you to get accepted, you will have to learn to read music. It's a music school, and you need to do that. On the other side of that, if you're a classical player and you don't improvise, you can still get admitted to Berkeley, and you can study with a classical teacher here. You will have some classes and some ensembles in the jazz tradition, so you will probably have to play or learn some jazz, but you can get admitted without improvising or playing jazz. It's not an easy question, but there are a lot of Asian young musicians here. I would say 2 things. One is some weakness is sometimes they don't understand the language as well, and I understand that. If I go to Taiwan, I'm not going to be able to speak Taiwanese. So we understand that. So I would say if you are thinking of coming to Berkeley, getting some instruction in the language is going to be helpful for you. I also do understand, though, because there are a lot of Asian musicians here, there's a lot of help. So I found young musicians who don't speak English very well, they still do very well because they're talking to their friends and sort of getting help after class. The strengths is that they're really good students, you know, the young Asian musicians, in my opinion. And again, I can't speak for every single one, but they come to class, they do their homework, they work hard. And so if you combine that with the desire and I think people who come from other countries, they come here and they're happy and inspired to be here. Sometimes maybe people who come from Boston, they don't understand how special Berkeley is because Berkeley's always been here. So sometimes I think people that come from far away really appreciate how special the opportunity they have being here at Berkeley. What's the secret to get through the audition? For instance, ear training, prepared piece, improvisation, or comping. So all those are part of the audition. Ear training, prepared piece, improvisation, and comping in the bass area would be what we'd call playing bass lines. Secret, one would be the prepared piece, which I already mentioned. That's very important. That's usually the first thing you play. Usually the audition team, when you walk in for the audition, usually they'll say, hello, how are you? What's your name? And then they're going to say, what are you going to play for us? And so if you start off with a strong prepared piece, that's really, I don't know if that's a secret, but that's in my opinion a great way to get started. It's also not a bad idea to have two pieces. The audition is 15 minutes long. It's going to go by real fast. You also do an interview in addition to the audition, but that's done at a different time. But if you can come in there with a really strong prepared piece, and if they have time, maybe a second piece, I think that's a great idea. And also just be ready to play a bass line. I recommend being able to play a blues. If you're a bass player, you have a teacher now and you're thinking about an audition, I would ask that hopefully the teacher can help you play a blues, whether it's rock and roll blues or jazz blues or funk blues or whatever. But a lot of times not every team does that, but we usually ask most students to play a blues. Again, work on your ears, maybe playing along with music you like. Put on the music and try to play along with it. Or if you hear a bass line you like, try to play it. Maybe try to notate it if you can notate music. You don't have to, but that's a good start with ear training. And improvisation, that would go along with the blues. If you could play a walking line and improvise the walking line, and if you can also do a melodic improvisation, then that's sort of like icing on the cake. Well, I think we have a great curriculum here. In addition to private lessons, and we have 28 teachers. Many of the teachers play both acoustic bass and electric bass, especially the older teachers, because when we grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was very common to start on acoustic bass and then go on electric because the electric was a new instrument. But we also have a number of students that I've been lucky to hire in the 70s and 80s and 90s that are really strong electric bass players. So we cover, we've got 4 different Latin labs that were created by Oscar Stagnaro. We have Fernando Huergo, who's also from Argentina, plays great Latin. Lincoln Goins plays great Latin and jazz fusion. We've got, like I said, many jazz upright players, Whit Brown, Dave Clark, Bruce Gertz, John Rapucci, myself, that play both acoustic bass and came up more as jazz players, but we also do play electric. We started playing electric usually in the 60s and 70s when the fusion music was happening. We've got the funk thing with Anthony Vitti, Slap Labs, Joe Santerre, the 6-string bass, and he's a sort of a contemporary rock player. Who else? Lenny Stallworth, great funk player, Motown player. We've got Danny Morris, we call him Danny Mo. He's coming from a Motown blues thing. I'm sure I've forgotten some people, but I think we have all the bases covered. We also have a curriculum that, in addition to the private lessons, we have bass labs. And these are 50-minute classes. They're group lessons, and I think they're great for teaching different styles. So in addition to your private lesson teacher, who could be maybe a jazz player, you could be taking a funk lab with Anthony Vitti or a Latin lab with Oscar Stagnaro. Or if you need help with your reading, you could be going to a reading lab or bassline construction lab. So the combination of the private lesson that focuses more on your instrumental skills, which are very important, but we also have the labs that are more geared to teaching different styles. We also have a lot of bass teachers that teach ensembles, which are bands. And so if you plan your schedule, if you are a player, a bass player, and you're interested in getting a lot of different instruction and viewpoints, you could have a bass teacher for your ensemble, bass private teacher, and then 1 or 2 bass labs. So you could be seeing 3 or 4 bass teachers each week. And I think that's I think that's a big plus, what we offer here at Berkeley. I sort of addressed this about speaking English. That's part of the interview. So remember, we call it the A and the I. It's called AI, which means audition and interview. So one of the part that's the interview has to do with you being able to, or how well you can express yourself either in English, and how you can tell someone from the admissions department what your goals are in music. So you need to be able to at least speak enough to be able to talk to someone from the admissions department and tell them in English what your goals are, why you want to come to Berkeley. And again, like I said, I wouldn't say you have to speak perfect English or extremely well, but obviously the classes here are taught in English. So if you're going to get the most out of the school or out of your classes if you speak English. I'm going to retire. Yes, 40 years I've been here. I started teaching here in June 1st, 1972, and it's now May, and no, it's now April, sorry. So I've got about a month and a half. I'm going to miss Berkeley, but I've been here 40 years. I helped create the electric bass program and hire most of the teachers that are here. It's been a great 40 years. The one thing I would say about that is that I think there is a place for everyone in music. So many people who come here because they want to perform, and they see the great performers on the stage and they're inspired by that. You may or may not end up as a great performer on the stage or making great records. You may. This is a great place to be, and we've had many people here that are doing that. However, there's so many other places and ways to go in music, and so my advice is that if you're spiritually involved with music and you're honest with yourself and with your other friends, that you'll find a place. I think that's sort of That's my message. You know, I came here after the Navy. I thought I was going to be a school teacher, and I did wind up being a school teacher actually, but I thought I was going to be teaching in a high school marching band. And all of a sudden I met my future wife, I met some people from Berkeley, and decided to come here. And then when I graduated, they asked me to start teaching here. So I did become a school teacher, but I also was able to do a lot of playing and a lot of performing. I'd like to say goodbye to the Taiwanese people. Wish you all the very best, and hopefully I will still be living here in Boston, so maybe I'll see you around Berkeley. Bye-bye.